Hey Sylvia, how you doing?
Hi, John. I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Loving your shed there. Loving that shed. Looks very familiar. I
I'm
do. I
always
really like
accompany
that.
you.
Fantastic. So we got so much to get through today. We've got an amazing topic. Thank you, Sylvia, so much for joining me in the shed for this one. I'm
Thank you
just
for
having
having me.
oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And while we give everybody a couple of minutes to join up to
Hmm.
sign in, why don't people just tell us where they're from? Just drop it into the chat, all the
Please.
questions or whatever you can do. Yeah, let us know where you're from. I see some familiar people here. I see
Ooh.
Robert Robert Smith, you legend. I see you there. So glad you could join us, Robert, all the way from sunny Italy.
Oh,
Um, Anyone else? Let us know where you are from. We've got a good number of people already, which is amazing.
yeah.
Ah, the
See some.
question.
Oh, questions.
Val, they're coming into the question. So Val's from Dublin. Yeah,
Oh,
post in the question. Post anything. Post wherever you can. Anyone further afield than Dublin? Snowy Shirebrook. Oh,
Iowa,
Carly, Space
Boston.
Coast, Florida. I'm so jealous. Springfield.
Oh,
Deb's from Springfield,
Illinois.
Iowa.
Hammersmith.
Hasenall's from Berlin. Hammersmith. Rudy's from New York. Rudy, I love New York.
Berlin.
So good. Yeah, Evie, not so sunny London. I concur. It is not so sunny. In fact, it's pretty dark out there as well. Okay, so right, let's give it 30 seconds. We got tons of people here, Sylvia,
Mm,
probably for the topic that you and I talk about pretty much more than anything at the moment. Would you
yes,
agree?
I 100% agree.
So amazing. So to anyone out there who, let's just move on to the next slide. But to anyone, you all know who I am, Jon Earnshaw, Chief Product Evangelist at Pi. Just in case anybody doesn't know you, Sylvia, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so my name is Sylvia. I'm Senior SEO Manager here at Pi. I've been working for Pi for 5 years now, and I've been around SEO uh, for for around 10 years, give it or take. So a long time, a long time.
Yeah, safe to say, Sylvia, you have a ton of knowledge about SEO, although you are being far too modest there in your introduction. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into it. So usual housekeeping at the start, guys. If you
Mhm.
have any questions about this, drop it into the questions or the chat or wherever you can. And we've got people who will bring all those questions together for me and Sylvia. If we've got time on the way, we'll answer them on the fly. If they need more explanation, then we'll leave them to the end. And I would say that there is so much to talk about with this topic. We can only scratch the surface. So if we gloss over something today, and you want to hear more about that, then let us know and we can run a special session just on that topic if there is enough interest. So
Yeah.
start thinking about what you want from future sessions. And to begin with, let's start with a poll. How prepared do you guys feel for the age of AI powered? And I put conversational search. How prepared are you? This will be interesting. And
Oh,
while that, I'm just seeing who else. Yeah, we got hundreds of people here. This is so cool. Somewhat prepared. Oh wow, I want to speak to these somewhat
yeah.
prepared.
Only 7% believe
Seven
they are
percent.
good.
Yeah,
Mm.
I tell you what, I'm not even in that 7%, Sylvia. I'm not good to go yet.
Me
8% to go.
neither.
I want the good to goes to tell us. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so top answer, somewhat prepared, 59%. I don't know where to begin, 33. Yep, there are many, many, many poor people out there who have not a clue either. I'm good to go, 8%. Fantastic. Right. With that in mind, today we are going to be looking specifically at the transformation of search. And it is a transformative time as we are getting used to not being dependent on that blunt instrument that is keywords and blue links. They go hand in hand. Keyword strategies. Keywords are still important because we use those to measure, but focusing everything on keywords is pretty outdated. We're going to explore the landscape, see what we can do with that, as we always do. And then we're going to show you, I think we've got 5 tips, things that you can do right now to start preparing for and getting into that conversation. And then we'll have Q&A at the end. So let's get started then with the rise of the conversation. I mean, I've been talking about this forever. Robert, in the audience there, you'll remember me presenting conversational search in Dallas at State of Search. I don't know, was that about 10 years ago? Yeah, Robert, yeah, put his hand up. 10 years ago, and it's finally here and it's finally now. So let's start with a quote. And I used this the other week at Brighton SEO, and this, I really believe this. Every single digital experience, and that includes search, that should be a conversation, either with voice or with a keypad or with your phone. A conversation will become a conversation, and this is the year it's happening. And there are many ways, Sylvia, that we can have a conversation. So here we have just a few, let's call them surfaces that people can enjoy conversations in. Sylvia, any of those stand out to you?
I'm a big fan of Perplexity, I have to say. I was a huge. I think I started with ChatGPT, and I was converted into that kind of way of searching, so to speak. Now that they have turned into proper search engines, that I feel you can be so much more granular in your searches without having to know to express everything in a, even if it's a long tail keyword. Now you can have a whole conversation and you can express what you need more in a more detailed way.
I love that. So would you say then, Sylvia, that by adopting and using Perplexity, you now behave differently with Google?
I try to behave different with Google, but the results that I get are not good enough yet with Google. Google is not ready to give me the personalization that Perplexity is giving me, or that SearchGPT is giving me. It still resorts to the blue links, and it's not what I'm looking for yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's not what you're looking for. You're used to something better now. And you mentioned SearchGPT. I'm so glad, because for everybody who's here today, I'm going to share with you a power user tip that will have you moving immediately to SearchGPT and away from Google. But let's start with another poll. How many of these application services, call them what you will, how many of these do you use regularly? The majority, a few people there, 2 or 3 of them, the vast majority so far. Yeah, it's interesting.
Adoption.
That bottom one, so can you see that one? I only use Google. 21%.
Yep.
That's going to change at the end of today. That 21 is going to go to 0. I guarantee by the end of today. Okay, so results are in. Vast majority are using 2 or 3 of these. 20% only Google. And I feel you, 20%, because we don't have the time to explore. But that's why we're here, to show you just a couple of things that you can do and how this is going to impact your strategy. So to everyone who participated, thank you so much. And if we had more time, I'd include some social applications in here as well, because depending on who you are just as likely to pick up TikTok or Insta to do a search. Imagine you want a restaurant review or something like that. So everyone is a surface, everyone is a touch point, a micro moment. So we can skip past this because we've actually done the poll, but the reason I put all of those into that slide was because I really believe, just as you said, Sylvia, using Perplexity changes your behavior. Using conversational applications changes your expectations as well. So can I ask a quick question for hands up, guys? Who's using SearchGPT right now? Not ChatGPT, but SearchGPT. They're David, Joe Hobbs.
Joe, who's that?
Who is that guy? Put his hand up. Three people. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Given that ChatGPT has now got over 200 million weekly active users worldwide. 200 million. If they can see what we're about to do now and start to use SearchGPT, that's a game changer. And the results are very different to Google. So I already shared this with you, Sylvia, but let's get into the first power tip today before we look at your strategies. You can supercharge your search. What I'm doing here is I'm looking for best Black Friday deals for 2024. You could search in Google, you could search in Bing. I just happen to be using SearchGPT. And if you don't do anything and you just search, you get some results like this. What's wrong with these, Sylvia? Tell me what's wrong with these results. Searching.
It looks like Google, doesn't it? It just looks like that your blue links, and there are other things going on there that are absolutely terrible. Like they are mainly US results.
Exactly. They're US results. They're pretty boring. They're not personalized. They're not that interesting. Should I switch? No, I think I'll stick to Google. Unless we realize that we can do so much better. Exactly the same search on the same device, you can get these results, which are so much better. Number one, I've got a table. I've got a table I want. I've got images there. I've got a description and price in pounds sterling. I've got where to buy it. First person feedback. You can even get a map at the bottom. Plus, it will filter all those results and tell me, Jon Earnshaw, what I should buy. I mean, that's a game changer, isn't it?
100%.
And when you compare them side by side, one is so much better. Now, every time I search for something, a product, I get those amazing results. I'm not going back to Google. If the 200 million users see this, they're not going back to Google either. Sylvia, you know how we do it. Anyone else out there have a guess how we can customize ChatGPT or SearchGPT? I'm sure some people know this, but we use custom instructions. You were using these back in the day, weren't you, Sylvia?
Yes.
When they originally, have you modified yours since then?
Oh, many times. Many times. I'm always going back and tinkering with it.
And now they are so much better. So literally, I'll show you what I did, guys, and I recommend you go out and try this and let us know. With custom instructions, you tell SearchGPT or you tell ChatGPT, if I'm using search mode, look down below and do this. If anybody wants this, I'll cut it and paste it and drop it into the chat. But basically, I tell it that if ever I'm using search and it's transactional, I want results from the UK. I want you to build a table. I want all of that in it. And then I want you to go through it and select one for me based on what you know about me. Because ChatGPT knows so much about me now. It knows that I work in a shed. It knows I like AI. It knows I love search, etc. So it gives me a recommendation too. That, if anyone out there is not doing that, then just get on with it. And by the way, if you like anything you see in this presentation, guys, don't forget to hit on the emojis, hearts, thumbs up, anything like that is what we need to keep us going. So let me know if you think that's a cool tip. I think that's an awesome tip. Yes. A few there. Robert. Yes. Good old Robert. Robert, we gotta talk. Melissa. Yeah, loads of people. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. Now, what's this got to do with conversation? Well, it doesn't stop there because of the mode I'm using. Because I'm using ChatGPT, SearchGPT, I'm encouraged. I have learned that I can keep the conversation going. So I'm actually asking for a comparison of some of the products in that list. And therefore, I am having a conversation. I've moved away from the blunt instrument, as we are all doing, as our customers are doing. And that's what we're here for today, to see what we need to do about this. this is behavior changing.
Yeah.
So let's get into Google. Sylvia, when you search for Google, are you still just using keywords? Are you using longer tail? Are you using voice? What
I
are you doing?
use I use longer tail, but I've always used longer tail. Very rarely do I use best eye cream, for example, as an
Why not?
example. Best.
What?
Because it's too
So
broad.
what?
It's not giving me the results that I want or that I need.
Yeah, yeah. And this is something that you and I talk about all the time.
Let's
Better
say
to be on page one for a bunch of relatively very low volume terms that are closer to intent
closer
than
to
one
it.
big fat term that nobody wants.
Yeah.
Let's see how this works. So we start a search, even if you're still using keywords,
Mm.
even if you're still typing boring keywords into a search engine that is capable of so much more. What's the first thing that we see? Sylvia, you know it. What comes up first?
My favorite, autocomplete.
What do you like about autocomplete?
It just saves me so much time, and it typically gives me what I need there. So if I
Mhm.
start the keyword with, for example, best eye cream or best sunscreen, then I will have something for mature skin, for sensitive skin, for whatever. So it's gonna be there, very, very, very highly likely that it's gonna be there what I'm looking for without having to end typing it.
Yeah, and you know what? People don't know, but autocomplete's been around since 2004. I mean, what's that? That's a long time. That's an awful long time. And put your hands up in the audience if you use autocomplete. If you're mobile searching and you see it, do you click on these? Just give us a feel.
4, 5,
Yeah,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, everyone.
yeah, everyone. And you know it, Sylvia. I know it. Thank you,
Everyone
guys.
uses.
Everyone's clicking on these. And if you've heard me talk about autocomplete before, you'll know what I'm about to say. According to Google, it actually saves up to 200 years of typing every single day. And in fact, since it was launched in 2004, it has saved humanity 1.4 million years of typing. Everyone's clicking on this. So if you're just focusing on the keyword at the top, you need to stop. You got to look down at those autocompletes because now it's even more interesting. For these ones there, it was 80, it's now 90% of those autocompletes are flipping you from keyword into conversation, whether you like it or not. It was 80%, but when I checked the other day, it's now 90%.
That's amazing.
So if you isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
And Sylvia, what do you think then of the AI overview now that you can see it? And how have your views on it changed over the past several months?
It has changed, I have to say. I mean, there's still things that I don't fully trust, like financial things like that, but that is kind of very niche topics. When it comes to generic searches, it's really, really informational searches. It's really, really good. It has
Yeah,
changed.
and you're right. And you know what? Google always said I'm not going to have YMYL content in there, but I
Mm.
Googled the other day how to climb a tree without a rope and use a chainsaw to chop a tree. And it gave me this AI overview. I thought there's nothing more dangerous
Why,
than that. But
why would you? Why didn't you search for that, John? I want to know a specific
I
moment.
was just I have a big tree in the garden that needs sorting. But in, into the AI overview, which is probably the biggest manifestation of conversation. And why do I say conversation? Why do we say conversation? Because think about this, only 25 to 50% of those original blue links on page one are making it in there. Okay. Lots of the features are now going from the original SERP into the AI overview. But the reason I call it a conversation is because of these. Remember these
We were
in the
all
good
on
old days?
this,
Yep.
yes.
Give us a thumbs up, guys, if you remember these in SGE, Search Generative Experience.
A couple of years ago, I think.
Deb, yeah, it was a while back. Yeah, Joe, of course you do, Joe. We showing our age here. So we're anyone who's been in search longer than, yeah, Marina, of course you do, Marina. Yeah. So when these come back, we're going to stop that vertical blue link scrolling and we're going to go on horizontal conversational journeys. So it's about getting in there now. When are these going to come back? I'll tell you when people trust the AI overview. So we're no longer talking about gluing cheese onto pizza or anything like that. Sylvia, you said you trust it now. It's not just you, it's not just me, but according to Gartner, 70% already trust those results. And also at the same time, Gartner were predicting a drop in traditional keyword blue link search volume by 25% by the end of 2026 because people are going into the conversation. So we're about to start to roll our sleeves up. Now, 2 questions at this point that we're going to answer in the rest of this session. How do I get into that conversation? And we're going to use AI overview as like an obvious conversation. So we're not going to talk about Perplexity today. If you want to talk about that, we'll talk about that in another session. SearchGPT, that's another session. All of these are another session. We're here to talk about that AI overview. But before we do this, the question I always ask is, well, how am I doing for conversation right now? And this is something that we can do today. We've been able to do it for months. And how do we do that? By building conversational equivalence. Sylvia, you work with a range of major clients. How many of those have you had discussions about building conversational equivalence
A lot,
with?
a lot, I have to say, especially e-commerce. E-commerce customers are very, very interested in being part of the conversation.
Amazing. So people are starting to understand it now, yeah, the importance of it.
Yes, absolutely. I think we've had both of us. We were in this meeting with this major customer of ours 2 years ago when we're starting to do this very exercise that you're going to talk about now.
Exactly. And guys, if you are a Pi user, you can do this. If you're not a Pi user, I would say just become one. But if you're not,
Yes.
I'm sure other applications are available. But before we show you how we do this, let's ask a poll question. Does your target keyword list, the keywords that you're focusing and obsessing on, does that include conversational equivalence? I.e., it could be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 word queries.
Nothing like
Think about voice queries.
Nothing like best moisturizer for mature skin. We're talking about what is the best moisturizer for a skin that is 50 something years old and that has been exposed to the sun for years.
You're talking about me there, Sylvia. And
I was talking about me.
and the thing, no, you're far too young. And the thing is, that query, that longer form search string there is going to get so much closer to intent. The results are just going to be better. Okay, talking to results are in. The majority of people, 61%, no, I'm not thinking about conversation equivalence. 33%, amazing guys. Thumbs up to you guys. Yes. 6%, what the hell are you talking about? Well, let's take a look. Okay, let me just close that poll. So, just picture this. There's a certain high street retailer, okay? It happens to be called ASOS. This is a visibility index, yeah? I can call ASOS out. I call them out as much as I call out John Lewis. But ASOS, this is their visibility for, I think, around 1,500 keyword searches related to high street fashion items. And they do pretty well. That's a score out of 100. Majority, they're page 1. Up or down, they're somewhere on page 1. So they get a visibility score of around high 50s. Pretty good, isn't it, Sylvia?
Very good.
So what we do is to find out if everybody woke up tomorrow morning and decided that conversation was where it's at, or voice search was where it's at, what would happen to their results? That's the line for conversation. And if we want to look at the difference, it's a 36% overnight drop in visibility equals traffic equals revenue. And this is a good one. We see some of these where people drop by 75, 80, and 90%.
Yeah.
So how do we do it? We take the original 1,500 keywords, could be 10,000, it's up to you. And then we build out a conversational equivalent or multiple conversation equivalents for each of those keywords. And that immediately gives us a very, very accurate view of what performance in the future is going to look like for general conversational search. It's pretty powerful, isn't it?
Very powerful.
What sort of different?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
No, I was gonna tell people that you may be thinking, oh, but those conversational equivalents, they probably have no search volume. Forget about search volume. It's not.
Yes.
We're not talking about search volume here. This is a different game.
100%, Sylvia. Absolutely. That's why you're here. Forget search volume. Because when you look at trophy terms, they might have a search volume of 100,000.
Yeah.
How many? That's about 0.0008% of all search terms. Google says use these predictions, autocomplete. They have zero volume. But yeah, Google says that's closer to intent. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Sylvia. How do we build out the equivalence? Well, guys, we built a conversational equivalent GPT. So it's not publicly available, but if anybody wants this, give us a thumbs up and we'll drop a link to it at the end of the session. And what this will do, thank you guys. What this will do, it will take your keywords and build them out into conversations by intent, informational, navigational, transactional, and then you can dump those straight into tracking. You got your chart. Yeah, I think people want that, don't they?
They do.
We must remember to drop that in there. Okay, so let's move on to getting into the conversation, and this is where, Sylvia, you and I sort of racked our brains as to what we include in here, but we want to include things that work, things that will get you in the AI overview. And we got a question, and we got a couple of questions.
Yes.
Do you want to take any of those, Sylvia, while we're here?
So would a conversational keyword for autism clinics be something like autism clinic in Austin, Texas that accepts Blue Cross Blue Shield? Yeah. And I think you are still thinking too much in terms of keywords. The way that you have created that, it's not autism clinic, is what would be the best autism clinic in Austin, Texas that accepts Blue Cross Blue Shield. So even the start of the this is, imagine that you are having a conversation. Would you start a conversation saying to someone, autism clinic in Austin, Texas? No, right? You would be saying, do you know of any clinic in Austin, Texas that accepts Blue Cross Blue Shield?
100%. And you're right, that example, it's like you walk into a store. If I walk into a store and say, best men's fragrances, they'll just ignore me. If I walk in and say, I think I'm bonkers. I say, hey, I'm looking for the best men's fragrances for winter, something new, something with really floral top notes or something. Then I'm having a conversation. I get something that's close to my intent, and I'm far more likely to spend more money because I'm certainly more satisfied with the results.
Exactly.
Time and time again. And the conversation, we didn't mention at the start, but these conversations are absolutely essential for the relationship between brands and customers and audiences. Yeah. Conversations underpinned by trust. And these conversations are manifesting right now in that AI overview. So let's get into point one.
Yes.
Something that we know will work. Own that real estate. And you and I have said this before, that don't just think about getting onto page one. Open multiple doorways. And what would be some obvious ways to open multiple doorways, Sylvia? What are we talking about here?
Imagine a classic link and an image, an
Yep.
answer card, for example, and a classic link.
Exactly.
Anything more than
Anything.
one.
You're right. Yeah, video, anything more than one, which is what we should be doing anyway, because we did some analysis and we'll show you some examples. As soon as, because only 25 to 50% of page one is getting in there unless you open more than one doorway. And the SERP landscape is so feature rich. Here's a quick snapshot. And this one's related to finance. Who ever thought finance would be so interesting? But lots of people also ask. Okay, obviously classic links. Video carousel, 27% of the time, there's videos. And the AI overview, 16%, way above average. So would you agree this is a rich SERP landscape in terms of finance?
Very rich.
And in the instance that we were looking at, when it came to searches for Bitcoin, the AI overview was dominated by Forbes. How did Forbes dominate it? Because they don't dominate it every day. Some days they are not even in the AI overview. But we tied it down to every single time they opened more than one doorway. And in this case, it was an answer card. It was an answer card as well as a blue link. They appeared in that overview. So just getting into the conversation is no guarantee of staying in the conversation. So that's one way of doing it, opening multiple doorways. I mean, in terms of like, how much effort do your clients spend on image optimizations, for example, Sylvia? Because that seems like an obvious way in.
It's very obvious, but I have to say that it's still something that I have to fight a lot with my customers, because there's lots of blockers for them to optimize their images. Sadly, it's sad.
And what sort of challenges are they having? Are they just lazy or technical
No,
blockers?
bless them. None of my customers are lazy, John.
They are.
They are all very hardworking. But for example, the
Yep.
CMS limitations, or whether images are hosted, many things. Sometimes even time and resource, they are not able to dedicate that time to, imagine a million page e-commerce site. They doing it
Yep.
at a scale. So yeah,
But certainly, it's an easy win to
it
own that.
is.
It's an easy win to own an answer card if you get onto page one first. And that is your golden ticket into that AI overview. Not just an appearance, but with Forbes, what was it? 38% of the real estate every time they own that answer card. As you know, they don't own them every day.
And let's not forget that Google, as you said many times, Google doesn't move a pixel without having the right data to demonstrate that that pixel needs to be moved 1 centimeter or whatever it is. So if Google is showing images at the top of the SERPs, it's because people are clicking on them.
Exactly. So true. So that's one way, that's one ticket to get in there. Next, we're talking about linking is so important. We're talking about linking for the conversation, aka building topical authority, getting your content joined up. I mean, topical authority, Silver, is something people have been talking about so much more. And I think thanks to ChatGPT, thanks to the AI overview, is this something you're hearing more about?
I've been talking about topical authority for years, but
Yep.
I believe that people are finally realizing of how important it is to demonstrate topical authority to rank within or to appear within the AI overview. And it's something that it only makes sense considering the type of algorithm that Google uses, the language models that Google uses. It's essential that you're an authority on that topic to show you within the AI overview.
100%. And when we think about linking effectively between content, this is really going to help when those horizontal conversations come back, because people are going from one part of a topic to another part of a topic to a third part and a fourth part. And how does Google understand that this brand here has
Yes.
got all of this information?
covered.
It's linking.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
even if you don't want to think about the AI overview, which you should absolutely, and you know that you should, and you're here today because of that. Even that internal link, it is so powerful in terms of rankings in the normal Google SERP landscape. From one day to the other, you can shoot to page one with just five updated internal links.
I couldn't agree more.
Mm.
You know, links so undervalued, so often overlooked,
Yeah.
and so often the answer. So, in terms of thinking about linking for the conversation, we need to start thinking about the conversation that's going on, whether that's in the AI overview or in Perplexity or in SearchGPT. What sort of direction is it taking? What are the anticipated questions? We've got to stop thinking search as question and answer. We've got to get that mindset of conversation, which means what comes next?
Yeah.
What's the obvious next question? And is my piece of content over here that answers that obvious next question linked to from the original? As simple as that. We can actually use the questions as anchor text just to make it so obvious to Google. If we're talking about the best SPF for somebody who spends a lot of time underwater, swimming, you
Mm-hmm.
can actually use that as the anchor text and point to the page with the answer. Connect content through questions.
Yeah.
And in terms of tools, okay, obviously at Pi, getting inside the mind of the searcher through people also ask and building much more effective links. These are all things that Pi is really, really good at. Now,
I love that part of Optimize Now on Pi.
I love it. It's,
Internal linking
you know
opportunities
what?
is
In terms of saving time, this gives
Mm,
me about an extra 2 hours in every day that
yeah,
I can spend exploring the world of AI. I mean, it's a game changer. If
it
anybody
is.
wants more information on this, then just reach out and let us know. There'll be a link at the end. So we come on to point number 3, the most contentious. And I'm just going to leave it there, Sylvia. Send quality signals.
Yeah,
Send helpful content signals, but don't overdo it. What do we mean
please.
by that? Go on, go on.
We've had this
Yeah,
conversation this week, and when you are so focused on creating the best possible content that you just take what it's been given to you and try to respond to it without thinking, does this read okay within my content? If you're an editorial business, a newspaper, a magazine, always think, would you be publishing this content in the paper version of your magazine or your newspaper? Would that even go in that version? Probably not.
yeah.
It
And,
needs to read organic, it needs to read good. Well,
and is it fair to say, Sylvia, that are you finding, especially for very competitive
yes.
topics, you're finding more and more content that just reads like it's over optimized?
1000%. If following the same example that you shared, if you're looking for best Black Friday deals 2024, and I land on a page that is talking about the best deals, why would your copy start with what is Black Friday? We all know what Black
Yeah,
Friday is. You know what I mean? We know it. You don't. It's don't do that. Don't do
yeah. And if you were a content creator, if you were the brand, and I came to you with my SEO hat on and was asking you to tick all of these boxes that didn't feel right, you'd push back, yeah?
Yes. Yes. And if any tool that you're using is telling you to publish content that doesn't feel right, see it, say it, sort it. You need
Yeah,
to don't pay attention to it. If it doesn't feel you as a writer doesn't feel right what you're writing, what it's telling you to write, don't do it.
yeah. But this isn't saying that we shouldn't be sending quality signals, is it?
No. there are ways to send quality signals and still having control over what you're writing and still having an editorial, ethos. It's both things are possible. Both things can coexist. They should coexist. They should go hand in hand.
Exactly. Hand in hand, and we shouldn't forget, and people often forget, that when it comes to the author, it's only the author of the content that ticks those 4 boxes: experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And lots of that is measured off-site,
Yeah.
which is why the relationship between organic social and organic SEO is so critical and so often overlooked, and maybe a topic for a whole other day.
Yeah.
So, quality signals, like fragrance, a little bit is all you need.
We don't need the history of fragrance on your first paragraph. Nobody needs that.
Exactly. All started with recipes, didn't it?
Oh God.
So, we've mentioned it before. We've got to start thinking long tail, conversation, natural language, because when you start to read results, for example, in AI overview, it's a very natural language, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
It's
not
very.
keywords. Yeah. So keywords aren't going to work here, and our content has to be natural. Yeah, it has to be high quality, but natural is just as important. So, in terms of headline things that we need to be thinking about, you said it, Sylvia. Don't obsess with volumes. You
No.
must have clients that say, you did have one, I want to be on page 1 for this term. And you'll say, no, you don't. Yeah.
No. He said, "Oh, I'm going to write a blog about it." Bless him. Anyway, it's not about search volumes. I mean, still part of your strategy should be and still will be, because you have to answer to stakeholders, which we understand, and they will come to you saying, "Why I'm not ranking for best eye creams?" And you still have to follow that, but you have to incorporate this into your strategy.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with keywords. We're not saying keywords are bad. We're just saying for the conversation, there's a whole lot more to it.
Yeah.
And and this hive, we could have a whole session on this. And I was chatting to somebody on LinkedIn the other day, and she was saying that she struggles internally because everybody is focused on the highest volume, when we know that when you look at the SERP, your content is not a match for that SERP landscape. You
Exactly.
cannot force your content in where it doesn't belong.
No.
So we start with autocomplete. We build out on that. We think about topics rather than individual keywords. And then crucially for me, we think about how the conversation is going to evolve. I'm always trying to predict, well, what would the next question be that somebody might ask once they've read this content? And as they ask those questions, they're getting closer to intent. We have to make sure we've got the content and it's joined up and connected effectively.
How will that conversation evolve? We also demonstrate, if you are able to reproduce that with your content, it's going to demonstrate Google that you really understand your customers or your readers or your users. So also it's also a good idea to have conversations with your salespeople or with your support people that can bring you those kind of pain points from your customers or your users. And the more you understand those and cover those in your content, the better.
100%. And I was having it reminds me of a conversation I was having with a client the other day. And what do we see a lot in Google's results at the moment? Reddit. Okay,
Yes.
so my advice was to actually read some of that, to get in there and read the conversations that people are having, the questions that people are having. That's why people use Reddit,
Yeah.
because they want the conversation. They don't go there for Q&A.
No.
They want insight. And Google knows that that's what people want. Hence the deal that Google did with Reddit. So we've got rid of the glue on pizzas, but still, it's a really great way of discovering insight by reading anything like that that appears within the SERP.
Yeah.
And there's some good conversation. It's very current. It's very up to date. So moving on, study the conversation in all of its forms. And if we went back to that slide at the original, Perplexity, I didn't put Claude because that's not necessarily a search engine, but Copilot, SearchGPT, AI overview, Gemini. And when I think about Perplexity, there's the most extraordinary things that you can do with Perplexity. You can actually use it, get the Chrome plugin, and
Hmm.
that's a game changer. And that will replace Google with something that actually gives you phenomenal results. So study these conversations. Well, we do it anyway, so maybe people don't have to, but I say start to look at these conversations. So we got about 14 minutes remaining for questions, but before we get there, just a bit of a summary. Is there anything in there that stands out for you, Sylvia? If there was one thing and you say, look, guys, I would start doing this right now, what would it be?
I would say study the SERP. I remember
Yeah.
when I started in Pi, the first webinar that I attended from you. You said that you have been up all night looking at the SERPs. I remember that was more than 5 years ago, and you're still obsessed with the SERPs. And I think it's key for success to understand the SERPs, to optimize in the context of the SERPs.
You know
And
what? I absolutely. And Sylvia, how many times when people find out what you do, how many times they say, "Oh, I've got this friend who's got this website. I've got a website. My dog's got a website." How often does that happen?
I don't know. It's either I don't know what SEO is, or I wrote a blog once and I started ranking for something. Well done.
Yeah. And the thing is, whenever I'm sat down with somebody and they say, "Oh, I've got to get on page one for this. This is make or," you know, like you, first thing I'll do, go to the SERP.
Yeah.
What does that SERP look like? Because we have to remember, and this is why at Pi we spend so much time gathering all of the data from the SERP. Okay, it's the manifestation of audience intent. Without the searcher, there is no SERP. That's a little philosophical, isn't it? So all of those, I would certainly want to be doing. Okay, right. I think we're being nudged. Well, I'm being nudged to up the pace. So if anybody out there would like a demo of Pi, then just there is a poll here. It's a yes, it's a no. I'm already a customer. I can see a lot of people are already customers. Um, so nobody else can see what you're saying. Almost done there. So yeah, a few people. Yeah, quite a few would like a demo. I don't blame you. I'd want a demo. Other platforms are available, but they're not as good, are they, Sylvia?
No, no, we're not biased, I have to say.
Absolutely. So if you really want to really understand that search landscape and prepare for the future search, I'd be clicking on yes, unless you are already a customer, and quite a few people out there are. Okay, I think that's time enough on that poll. Um, and before we go to questions, we did mention that conversational builder. There is a QR code, and I am assured that if you scan that, that's going to give you a download link. And what I would say, when you get it, once you've had a play with it, you started to build it out and build out your keyword equivalence. Sylvia's testing it. Um,
I'm testing the link. Yes, it works.
it and it's also in the chat as well. If you're old school like me, if you have any recommendations or suggestions to improve it, to change it, then just
Mhm.
let us know. And in fact, if there is enough demand out there for a session on GPTs, goodness knows we've built enough of them at Pi, then just give us a shout and we will arrange that, because that would be super fun. I think last year, Kat says yes, one of our most successful webinars ever. Rosie, yes, was all about building GPTs, and we have learnt so much over the past couple of years. Evie, yes, wonderful. Okay, so let's get on to the Q&A. Let's have a look. We got it. Right, Steve Madrick. From a conversational search perspective, there is a certain amount of legacy of structure based on previous consideration of voice search preparation, I think. Okay, there is. I'm not sure I understand. I mean, if you're preparing for voice, and you have been preparing for voice for a long time, which we probably should all be doing, then yes, legacy structure is in place, because voice is just another mechanism for conversation. Conversation could be keywords, it could be keyboard, it could be through your phone. So I would say absolutely yes. So I don't think we have any more questions right now. If anybody has got any questions, or there is a part of this that you would like some more focus on, then drop that into the chat and we can arrange that for next time, or put on a special performance. So I'm just looking. So still a ton of people out in there. Any questions before we wrap this up, guys?
Daniel says it's hard to play it your way when everything in Europe will be available 20 years later and maybe not everything at all.
Oh, maybe
he's referring to kind of the EU restrictions.
Oh, I mean, for example, with Apple Intelligence, yeah, there is a lot of stuff that has been held back due to EU legislation, and that is true. But it does happen very quickly. So, for example, when SearchGPT was enabled about 3 or 4 weeks ago, then we got that in the UK very rapidly. There was virtually no delay on that one. So the original ChatGPT timeline went from like that to about that. Apple Intelligence, again, that's down to legislation, but hopefully that will be out. And Apple Intelligence, if you weren't using Conversation before and you got an iPhone, a new one, then Apple Intelligence is going to flick that switch. Truly multi-dimensional, multimodal, cross-platform, cross-app, cloud-based search. That's incredible. Any other questions? Okay, how do we Ariane, do we answer that one? Okay, don't optimize. Oh, don't optimize, don't over optimize.
Any advice on where the line is?
Sylvia, go on. You see more of this than anyone.
I think you need to go with your gut here.
Yep.
If it's not, if you're thinking that the content you're producing will not satisfy your audience and your readers or your customers, then do you think that what you're going to write is necessary for them to leave your site more informed than when they arrived? Is the main content enough on itself for them to understand the topic? Are you going a bit off piste?
Yeah.
If you have a site that sells Adidas sneakers, do we need in one of your PLPs the story of sneakers? No.
100%. We don't.
Maybe we need on the page how Adidas in your about page, the history of Adidas. Yes, but do we need to go back to Roman times? Probably not. I think it's very logical.
Yeah, it seems logical. I totally agree with you, which is insane why when we look at content out there, so much of it is like, even my son Charlie, like he's 20 odd, he doesn't know about SEO. He'll read it and he said, this is optimized for Google. I hate it. So you got to go with your gut. David's asked an interesting question. David Jackson, can schema markup and structured data improve visibility in AI-powered search results? I would say yes.
Yes.
Because certainly anything that makes your content more easy to understand, and then a lot of that markup is designed for rich snippets to show your content off to its best, that, for example, in the form of an answer card, then absolutely that is going to help. Because if you're optimizing for those rich snippets, then you're much more likely to own more than one doorway, and therefore you are going to get your golden ticket into that AI overview.
And there are types of structured data that will help you a lot showcasing your quality signals. For example, author or references or citations, for example. Those are going to help Google understand how authoritative you are.
Exactly. And you know what? I'm glad you said that about the author, Sylvia, because those signals of authorship for high YMYL are so, so important, without which you can spend $1 million on your content. You're not going to get visible, you know, if you aren't sending those signals. And those authorship signals are different to the content signals. They are different to the site signals as well. So you have to get that right. And we have, if you search, we have done other webinars on quality signals, and they are well worth looking at. But again, like fragrance, don't overdo it. Thank you, says Leighton. If we're not looking at search volume, what sort of metrics should we use? Again, we've only got a couple of minutes. This is an interesting one. We debate this internally. Yeah. Okay.
Volume is a good topic.
We can think, guys, about, so let's think of an autocomplete. Best moisturizer. What? I don't know, 100,000 average monthly searches. Best moisturizer for dry skin, a fraction, etc., etc., etc. So we take those 10 and we can attribute some of the volume from the trophy down to these other longer tail extensions. So start thinking about topical value. The value of the topic, which could, and the trophy terms are indicators as to the value of the topic. Because nobody wants best moisturizer. They want best moisturizer for them, for their skin, for their age, for their complaint, for whatever. That's what they want. And don't let Google fool you guys. Google says, hey, autocomplete, this is a prediction. It's closer to intent. You know what? This is what you want. Oh, and by the way, it's got no volume. Hang on a minute, Google. Are you sure? Yeah. So going off on one there. Thank you so much, Evie. Thank you, Evie. Ty, do you see AI being able to make auto purchasing more of a thing once AI search optimized and fully personalized? Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. But I hope my AI doesn't get up in the middle of the night after having a glass of wine and start buying loads of things for me. It'll happen. So any of those other questions jump out at you, Sylvia?
No, I think we've covered all of them.
Yeah, which means that there are 2 minutes. So while you look at that, Sylvia, I just want to say to everybody who came to this session, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We appreciate all of you who took an hour out of your day to come along. Thank you for the emojis and all of that. And Sylvia, thank you so much for making this session so much better. I really appreciate you joining me today as well.
Always a pleasure, John.
No worries. So link up to Sylvia on all of that stuff. I was going to say LinkedIn, but other platforms. And if you have any questions that you didn't get across in the session, reach out to Sylvia, reach out to me as well, and we can cover those asynchronously as well, offline. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Yes.